Hi, this is Jimmy the Font Meister, and today I'd like to talk about troubleshooting complex logo fonts. Now, I've put a complicated piece of artwork here up on the screen in freehand, and I'd like to talk about how we can get into trouble with these kind of logos. A logo that's imported in Fontographer and generated as a font will sometimes not display or print properly. At some point sizes, the logo appears fine, and other sizes, the logo has problems which may occur when it's on the screen or when it's on the printer. Now, the reason for this is that the logo is too complex. There's only so much information you can put into one character slot in a font. There are several things that come up when we talk about complex logos. First of all, problems come up because the user has scanned or drawn a logo that has too many points. This is a good time to remind a user that the less points you use, the better. Now, somebody may look carefully at this logo I've got on the screen and notice that, hey, maybe you could say that this armadillo here could not be drawn any differently than it was and still look like an armadillo. Well, okay, you've got a good point there, but still, you're most likely going to have problems when you try to use this as a logo. So, we're going to go through step by step what we can do about it. First of all, though, we want to make sure that we use as few points as possible. If you feel that you have used as few points as possible, then you're going to have to split this character so that part of the character is in one character slot and the other half is in a different character slot. So either way, we've got too much information in this logo. Alright, so for example, let's take a look at some typical situations. Just to make sure we're all on the same page, a circle only needs 4 points at north, south, east, and west. If I were to add another point to this circle, it is not going to improve the visual effect of this circle whatsoever. I know there are some artists who would disagree with me, but you can put as many points as you want to all over here, and this is not going to look like any better of a circle than it did with 4 points. So here's the rule of thumb. You only add points if necessary to control the shape of whatever it is you're drawing. In other words, if you can't get the shape you want by manipulating these BCPs, and you try and you try and you just can't get this thing to have that shape you want, then you'd have to add another BCP, say right about here. Then I'll go along with that. You definitely have a piece of artwork that's going to need another point. But I'm trying to stress the fact that you'd stay out of trouble if you would use as few points as possible. Okay, now there's some more things we need to cover as far as understanding vector artwork that has been brought in from a vector editor like Freehand or Corel Draw or Illustrator. Okay, the main thing you need to know is if you'll go here to Element, Selection Info, pop down this little menu here, you're going to notice that there's a difference between the desktop publishing world and the font world. So if you come in here and there's a stroke on the artwork, in the font world, the font specs immediately think of this as a type 3 font if there's a stroke on it, or if it doesn't have 100% fill, or if it has an even odd fill, which Illustrator has. So the first thing you need to know as far as why is my logo looking bad or behaving badly in Fontographer is you better make sure there's no stroke, that you have 100% fill, and that you have a normal fill. So if you want to know more about type 3 fonts, you can see our tutorial on font formats for more details. Okay, now another issue that may come up when you're creating a logo is that you've accidentally pasted a path on top of a path. Now, I know many people who are professional graphic artists who say that's impossible, and then when we troubleshoot the font, we select the top path and we try to move it, and lo and behold, I guess we did have a path on top of a path. And so it happens to the best of us, so you might have to overcome your pride and inspect your paths very carefully. Now, Now, here's another issue that comes up is when you're looking at this character, let's say it was just imported from Illustrator, everything looks fine, and you're thinking, why is there a problem with this logo? You need to go to File, Preferences. You get the Point Display Preferences. Notice this little legend here on the side that lets you know what it's doing. If here's unclosed paths or adjacent points. Now you see there is a problem. Why is that? You see, in the desktop publishing world, they don't care about whether some points are joined or not. I mean, there can be problems, but you can get away with murder in a desktop publishing program. In the font world, you can't. So what you've got to do is you've got to identify a broken path and then drag the back on top of the other point, and lo and behold, you've repaired the broken path. Another tech support question we get is, why is there a problem with my preview or the fill on my artwork? It was fine when I was in Illustrator or some other desktop publishing program. When I bring it into Fontographer, look, why is that messed up? Well, the first thing I would do is go to Element and correct path direction. So you notice that you've got to have a winding fill, which is clockwise on the outside, and the counter, or the inner part is called the counter, would be counterclockwise. So you can tell by the arrow down here in the bottom left corner of the screen. So now I've repaired my path direction. Now the reason for the problem is some desktop publishing programs such as Illustrator, they use different path direction than the font world does. So once again, there's a big difference between drawing desktop publishing artwork and creating a font. And one final problem is, let's say that this inner path here was supposed to be some kind of wording such as "My Good Logo." The problem may be that when you were in Illustrator, you forgot to use the Create Outlines feature and you left the artwork as if there were supposed to be a font here. When you're creating vector artwork, it's all got to be vectors, including the text. So you need to convert text to paths or make outlines so that it will no longer be looking for a font here in this path. It would be looking for some outlines. Okay, let's say that you have taken care of all your point and path issues. Now here I've created a basic black and white logo to give you the idea of how to prevent problems in a complicated logo. Granted, this isn't a very complex logo, but let's use it for demonstration purposes. Now, let's say we decided that things aren't working out and this is too complicated of a logo. So what we've got to do is decide, how can I split the logo into separate pieces so that I can type a series of keystrokes, say in Microsoft Word, and the way that I design the font is so that it will combine all the pieces when I press those keystrokes. You can see I could have several problems here. I've got a path on top of a path here with this arrow. I would have to remove overlap, or I'm going to have problems on some printers, especially on an image setter. So what I might decide is, you know what I think I'll do? I think I will just take this arrow out of here and go put it in another slot. So this is the A slot. Now let's say here we are in the B slot. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to test how well this works by going to the metrics window and type A and B. Okay, I select the second character or part of the logo. Be careful not to select the K button because you don't want to kern this. What you want to do is offset it. When you click on the character rather than one of the lines, you can create an offset by dragging the character, and then you can fix the side bearing, because remember, this is where the cursor will come to rest after you type the character in Microsoft Word. You don't want the cursor to jump way over here. So what you do is you bring it over. And remember, never put the right side bearing on top of the left side bearing. There has to be at least one M unit anytime you're doing an offset character. Okay, so let's test how well this logo font works in Microsoft Word. What I've done is gone in and installed the font and typed the letter A, and now we'll type the letter B and you can see how it's combined to create a logo. So the only problem you have left is to go to Fontographer, File, Print, and then select Key Map. And for the end user, you'll need to print out a key map so that they know to type A and B to get the logo. Okay, for extremely complicated logo fonts, there's another method that I've used in the past. This is called using composite or reference characters. What we do is go ahead and do a select all. Go up here and go copy, component. Okay? When we do that, we're copying a ghost image of the character instead of the character. You'll see I pasted here in the letter C slot, and there is a ghost image. Now I'm going to do the same with the arrow. Now you'll notice I have two ghost images pasted into the same slot. So in other words, you have to think of it this way. The images really aren't there, but it tells the font rasterizer, go to the letter A and get one part of the logo, and go to the letter B and get the other part of the logo, and combine them in this in the same slot. So when I type the letter C in Microsoft Word, I'm going to get the logo. I don't need to remember any keystrokes, and it uses less memory this way. So that's another technique for extremely complicated fonts. Okay, we're just about done with this project. There's one last thing we need to talk about. Characters 0 through 31 are used for control characters. Okay, and then characters 127 to 160 are used by the operating system. So I would strongly recommend that unless you become an expert font meister, that you do not use 0 through 31 or 127 through 60. And that way you'll stay out of trouble by not using characters that are in a reserved range. Well, that's about all you need to know to troubleshoot your complex logos. Just keep in mind that there's a difference between the desktop publishing world of vector art and the font specifications. And these tips should make you successful at creating a complicated logo font. Thank you for watching the Fontographer tutorial series. Let us know if you have any ideas for some topics you'd like to see covered. And as always, check your user manual for details, and there's some good tech notes on the use of artwork and logos in Fontographer when you go to the Fontographer page and click on the tech note link.